The morning sun rose slowly over the quiet village, touching the small huts with a warm golden light. The fields were still wet from the night's rain, and the air smelled of wet soil and smoke from cooking fires. In a narrow lane on the edge of the village, a young girl named Maya woke up before most others did. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, folded her thin blanket, and sat for a moment on the small mat that served as her bed. Her mother was already up, boiling tea in a metal pot that had lost its shine long ago. The smell of it filled the little house, which had only 2 rooms, one for sleeping and one for everything else. The walls were made of clay, and the roof leaked whenever it rained. But for Maya and her mother, this small house was still home. Maya's mother worked at a textile mill in the nearby town. Her job was hard, her pay was little, and her hours were long. She would leave before sunrise and come home late in the evening, tired and covered in dust. Yet she always tried to smile at her daughter, hiding her pain so that Maya could believe that life would one day be better. Maya was only 12, but she had learned what struggle meant. Every day after school, she sold flowers on the street to earn a few coins. She would sit near the market, holding a small basket of jasmine and roses she picked from the fields in the early morning. Most days, people walked past her without even looking. Some would smile and buy a few flowers. Others would pretend she wasn't there. Still, she never stopped trying. She believed that one day all her mother's sacrifices would be worth it. Her mother had taught her something simple but powerful. We may be poor, but we are not hopeless. That morning, Maya tied her hair into 2 small braids, wore her faded blue dress, and packed her little basket with flowers wrapped in old paper. Her mother placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and said softly, "Be careful on the road and come home before it gets dark." Maya nodded, smiled, and picked up her basket. The walk to the market took almost an hour. She walked barefoot most of the way, saving her worn-out slippers for when she reached the crowded areas. She passed the same trees, the same broken bridge, and the same old man who sat outside his hut, with a small radio playing old songs. Everyone in the village knew her by sight, the little flower girl with the bright smile and the determined eyes. When she reached the market, she found her usual spot near a small shop that sold sweets. She arranged her flowers neatly and sat down. The air was filled with the sounds of people bargaining, children running, and shopkeepers shouting prices. Maya liked the noise. It made her feel part of something alive. She called out to passers-by, her voice soft but steady. "Fresh flowers. Jasmine, roses, marigold. Fresh flowers." Hours passed. She sold a few bunches, enough to buy some rice and maybe a bit of milk for her mother. Her stomach growled, but she didn't eat. She wanted to save every coin. The sun climbed high and the heat grew stronger. Sweat ran down her forehead and she wiped it away with the edge of her sleeve. By late afternoon, dark clouds began to gather in the sky. Maya looked up and frowned. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain. She knew she had to sell the rest of her flowers quickly before the storm arrived. People started leaving the market, hurrying to find shelter. Maya stood up, calling out louder now, her voice almost pleading. "Last flowers. Please take some flowers." A few people stopped, but most ignored her. The first drops of rain began to fall, small and cold. Within minutes, it turned into a heavy downpour. Maya covered her basket with a piece of cloth and held it close to her chest. She ran to stand under a tin shed near the road, waiting for the rain to stop. The street quickly filled with water. Buses and cars splashed as they passed. Maya shivered as the wind blew rain into her face. She thought about her mother, who must be working in the noisy mill, not even knowing that her little girl was standing in the storm. After a while, the rain slowed a little. Maya decided to head home. She stepped carefully onto the wet road, her small feet splashing in puddles. The sky was still dark and only a few cars were passing now. She held her basket tight, trying to keep the flowers from getting ruined. As she crossed the street, her foot slipped on the wet pavement. In a second, she fell hard and the basket flew out of her hands. The flowers scattered across the road, some floating in puddles, some crushed under her knee. She tried to pick them up quickly, her heart racing. She didn't even notice the bright headlights coming toward her. A loud horn blared and tires screeched. Maya froze, too scared to move. The car stopped just a few feet away from her. Her heart thumped so fast she could hardly breathe. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out holding an umbrella. He looked shocked but quickly ran toward her. "Are you hurt?" he asked, bending down beside her. His voice was calm but worried. Maya shook her head, unable to speak. Her hands trembled as she tried to gather the ruined flowers. The man knelt beside her and helped her pick them up. "It's okay," he said gently. "Don't cry." Maya didn't even realize she was crying until he said that. Tears mixed with the rain on her face. She felt embarrassed, small and scared. When they finished picking up the flowers, the man stood up and looked around. "Where do you live?" he asked softly. Maya pointed down the long road that led to her village. It was still raining and her house was far. "You can't walk all the way in this rain," he said. "Come, I'll take you home." Maya hesitated. She had never been in a car before, never trusted strangers easily, but there was something kind in his voice, something that made her believe he truly meant no harm. She nodded slowly. He opened the car door for her and she climbed in carefully, holding her basket on her lap. The seat felt soft and the car smelled like new leather. Maya sat quietly, staring out the window as they drove through the wet roads. She didn't know what to say and the man didn't press her to speak. After a while, he asked her simple questions. Her name, her school, her mother's work. Maya answered in short sentences, still shy. He listened carefully to every word, not interrupting once. There was something gentle about him, something different from the people she usually met. When they reached her lane, Maya pointed to a small hut near the end. The man slowed the car and parked nearby. He looked at the house for a moment, noticing how small it was, how rain leaked from the edges of the roof. He said softly, "You're very brave, Maya. You help your mother, you go to school, and you still smile. That's something not everyone can do." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever said such words to her before. She just nodded and gave a small, shy smile. Her mother came running out as soon as she saw the car. For a moment she looked frightened, then saw Maya step out and sighed with relief. "Where were you?" "I was so worried," she said, hugging her tightly. Maya's mother turned to the man and thanked him again and again, not sure how else to express her gratitude. He smiled and said it was no trouble. Before leaving, he handed Maya some money, saying softly, "Buy new flowers tomorrow. And take care of yourself." Maya tried to refuse, but he insisted. "It's not charity," he said kindly. "Think of it as a thank you for reminding me that small acts still matter." Then he got back into his car and drove away, the red lights disappearing down the wet road. Maya stood there watching until the car was gone. She didn't even know his name, but something about that moment felt important, as if her life had quietly changed, though she couldn't yet see how. That night after dinner, Maya lay on her mat listening to the sound of rain on the roof. Her mother had fallen asleep beside her, tired from the long day. Maya closed her eyes, remembering the man's words, his calm voice, and the way he had helped her without asking for anything. She didn't know why he stopped for her when so many others had walked past, but deep inside she felt grateful. Grateful that in a world that often seemed harsh and cold, there were still people who cared. She promised herself that someday, if she ever had the chance, she would do the same for someone else. As the rain continued to fall, she held that thought close to her heart, not realizing that this small rescue on a rainy evening would one day lead to the most beautiful twist in her life. The next morning, the sun rose bright and warm, drying the last traces of rain from the narrow streets. Maya woke up earlier than usual. The events of the previous evening still played in her mind. She could still see the man's kind face, his gentle voice, and the way he had stopped his car just in time to save her. It all felt like a dream, yet the few coins he had given her were real, resting safely inside a small tin box she kept under her mat. Her mother noticed the quiet smile on Maya's face as she prepared breakfast. "You seem happy today," she said softly, stirring the pot of porridge. Maya nodded and told her mother everything about what had happened, the fall, the car, and the man who helped her. Her mother listened with wide eyes, then sighed deeply. "There are still good people in this world," she said almost to herself. "May God bless that man for stopping to help you." After breakfast, Maya picked up her flower basket and set off again toward the market. The sun was shining bright and the puddles on the road sparkled like tiny mirrors. Her heart felt lighter than usual. She even hummed a small tune as she walked. When she reached the market, she arranged her flowers neatly and began calling out to customers. "Fresh flowers! Jasmine and roses! Fresh flowers!" Her voice carried a cheerful tone that made a few people stop to buy from her. She sold more flowers than usual that morning, and for once the day seemed kind. Around noon, she noticed a familiar car stopping across the road. Her eyes widened. It was the same one from last night. The man stepped out, holding a small paper bag. He smiled when he saw her. "Hello, Maya," he said, crossing the street. She stood up quickly, unsure whether to feel surprised or nervous. "You came back?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Yes, I was nearby for work, and I thought I'd see if you were okay." He handed her the paper bag. Inside was a small packet of biscuits and a bottle of juice. "You didn't eat anything last night, did you?" he asked gently. Maya shook her head, embarrassed. "I was fine," she said quietly, though her stomach had indeed been empty the night before. "Then have these now," he said with a warm smile. "You shouldn't work all day without eating." She hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you." She sat down and ate slowly while he waited nearby, chatting with her as she nibbled the biscuits. He asked about her school, her favorite subjects, and what she wanted to become one day. "I want to be a teacher," she said after thinking for a moment, "so that children like me can learn even if they don't have much." He looked at her with quiet admiration. "That's a beautiful dream," he said, "and I believe you can make it come true." Before leaving, he bought all the flowers she had left and placed the money in her small pouch. "Go home early today," he said. "The sun is too strong." That evening, Maya reached home earlier than usual, her basket empty and her heart full. She told her mother about the man returning to see her again. Her mother looked thoughtful. "He must have a kind soul," she said. "But be careful, Maya. Not everyone who is kind stays kind. Still, if his heart is good, maybe it's God's way of helping us." Days passed and Maya began to see the man more often. Sometimes he stopped to buy flowers, sometimes just to ask how she was doing. He always spoke gently, never rushing, never showing pity. Instead, he seemed truly interested in her life, her school, her dreams, and her small stories from the market. One afternoon, he brought her a small notebook and some pencils. "For your studies," he said. "You can write your thoughts or maybe draw something when you're tired." Maya accepted the gift with both hands. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice shy but full of gratitude. "I'll take good care of it." From that day, she began writing short notes in the notebook every night. She wrote about her dreams, about her mother, about selling flowers, and about the stranger who kept showing kindness without asking for anything in return. One rainy evening, the man, whose name Maya finally learned was Arjun, came to see her again. He saw her sitting under a small shade, shivering slightly from the cold. Her thin dress was soaked, and she was trying to protect her flowers with a piece of plastic. "You shouldn't be out here in this weather," he said gently, taking off his coat and placing it over her shoulders. Maya looked up at him with wide eyes. "But if I don't sell these, we won't have enough for dinner," she said simply. He stood there for a moment looking at her, the little girl who refused to give up, no matter how hard life became. "How much would you make if you sold them all?" he asked. She did a quick count in her head. "Maybe 100 rupees, she said softly. He reached into his pocket, took out his wallet, and gave her the money. "Then go home," he said with a gentle smile. "Dinner is waiting." Maya looked confused. "But you didn't take the flowers," she said. He chuckled softly. "Keep them. Maybe put them in a vase at home. Your house will smell like hope." That night, as she walked home through the rain, clutching the money and wearing his coat, she couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't just the money. It was the kindness. It was the feeling of being seen, of being valued. Her mother was speechless when she heard what had happened. She folded her hands and whispered a prayer of thanks. "This man has a heart of gold," she said. "He's helping you like a father would." The next morning, Maya washed the coat carefully and kept it folded, hoping to return it when she saw him again. And she did 2 days later. She handed it back with a big smile. "Thank you for letting me borrow it," she said. He took it with a small nod. "Did it keep you warm?" he asked. "Yes," she said. It felt safe. Those words touched something deep in him. He looked at her and realized how easily this child trusted him, how her heart was still pure despite all the hardship she faced. Over time, Arjun started visiting Maya and her mother at their home. At first, her mother was nervous, but soon she saw that his intentions were good. He spoke with respect, never crossing lines, always offering help in small ways. A bag of rice, new notebooks, a pair of shoes. One evening, he asked Maya's mother a serious question. "Would you allow me to help with Maya's education?" he said. "She's smart and she deserves a real chance." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "We can't afford a big school," she said softly. "I'll take care of the expenses," he said. "All I ask is that you let her study well and follow her dreams." It took her mother a few days to agree. She wanted to trust him but feared being fooled. Still, something about his steady kindness made her believe he truly meant it. Finally, she said yes. When Maya found out, she couldn't believe it. "A real school?" she asked, her eyes shining. "With uniforms and books?" "Yes," he said, smiling. "Everything you'll need. But you must promise me one thing. Study hard and never forget where you came from." She nodded, tears of joy running down her cheeks. "I promise," she said. The first day at her new school was both exciting and frightening. The building was big, the classrooms bright, and the students well-dressed. Maya felt small and nervous at first. Some children stared at her old shoes and simple bag, but she didn't let it bother her. She remembered Arjun's words. "Be proud of your roots, not ashamed." Every evening after school, she would still help her mother a little. But instead of selling flowers full-time, she now spent her nights studying by the dim light of a single lamp. Her mother often watched her and whispered, "You're going to change our world, my child." Arjun continued to check on them now and then, making sure Maya had everything she needed. He never treated them like charity cases. He treated them like family. One day when Maya brought home her first report card, she ran straight to show him. "Look, I got the highest marks in class," she said proudly. He smiled and said softly, "I knew you would." Then he added, "Remember, Maya, education isn't just about books. It's about learning kindness too. Someday when you can, help someone else like I helped you." Maya nodded, her heart full of gratitude. That night, she sat under the moonlight holding her notebook and wrote a single line that would stay with her forever. Sometimes, the people we meet by accident are the ones who change our lives the most. She didn't yet know how true those words would become. For now, she was just a girl chasing her dreams, unaware that her story was only beginning to unfold, and that the best twist was still waiting just beyond the horizon. Time passed, and life began to look different for Maya. The little flower girl who once stood barefoot in the market was now a student with books, a clean uniform, and new dreams. The days of counting coins under the flicker of a small lamp were still there, but they were now filled with hope. Her mornings started early. She would sweep the small yard, help her mother with breakfast, and then walk to school with her bag slung over her shoulder. The road to school was long, but she walked with pride. Each step felt like a promise she had made to herself and to the man who had believed in her when no one else did. At school, Maya listened carefully in every class. She asked questions, stayed behind to finish her work, and always offered to help her teachers. The other students soon began to notice her determination. Some admired her. Others whispered about her simple clothes and worn-out shoes, but Maya didn't mind. She knew why she was there. Every month, Arjun checked on her progress. He often brought her new books, sometimes fruit, and always a few kind words that made her feel special. He never treated her as if she owed him anything. Instead, he said that helping her gave him purpose. One day after school, he came to visit Maya and her mother. The evening was calm, and the smell of cooked rice filled the little house. Her mother invited him to sit down, offering a cup of tea. "I can't thank you enough," she said. "You've done more for us than anyone ever has." Arjun smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "Seeing Maya study like this, that's the best reward." Maya listened quietly, her heart swelling with emotion. She still remembered that rainy night when he had stopped his car and helped her gather her flowers. Back then, she couldn't have imagined that the same man would one day change her life completely. As the months passed, Maya's grades kept improving. She joined the school library and spent hours reading books about great people who had overcome hardship. She loved stories about those who rose from nothing and built something beautiful from their struggles. She saw herself in them. Her teachers began to notice her potential. One of them told Arjun during a parent-teacher meeting, "She is one of our brightest students. With the right support, she could go very far." Arjun smiled proudly. "That's exactly what I hope for her," he said. At home, Maya's mother's health began to weaken. Years of hard labor had left her tired, her hands rough and her back bent. Still, she never stopped encouraging her daughter. "Study hard," she said often. "If you do well, you'll never have to live like this." Maya would sit by her mother's side at night, reading aloud from her textbook so her mother could listen. Even when she was exhausted, her mother smiled and said, "I may not understand everything you read, but your voice makes it sound like music." Sometimes, Arjun visited them with medicine for her mother or a small bag of groceries. He never made it feel like charity, always as if he were helping family. Maya once asked him why he cared so much. He looked at her for a moment before answering. "When I was young," he said slowly, "someone helped me too. I promised myself that if I ever got the chance, I'd do the same for someone else. Maybe that person is you." Those words stayed in Maya's heart forever. She realized that kindness had a way of passing from one person to another, like a light that never went out. A few years later, Maya finished her schooling with top marks. Her teachers celebrated her success, and even the village people who had once overlooked her now spoke of her with pride. "That's the flower girl who became a scholar," they would say with smiles. Arjun attended her graduation ceremony. As Maya walked across the stage to receive her certificate, she searched the crowd and found him watching, clapping proudly. Their eyes met for a brief second, and that look said more than words ever could. It was the look of a dream that had come true. After the ceremony, Maya ran to him, holding her certificate tightly. "I did it," she said, breathless with joy. "You did it," he replied, smiling. And this is just the beginning. But success brought new challenges. College was expensive, and Maya's mother's health was getting worse. One evening, Maya sat outside their small house, staring at her books with tears in her eyes. She wanted to study more, but she couldn't imagine leaving her mother alone. When Arjun came by and saw her quiet face, he asked, "What's wrong?" She hesitated. "I want to go to college," she said, "but I can't leave my mother. And even if I could, we don't have the money for it." Arjun thought for a while. Then he said gently, "You don't have to choose between your dreams and your family. I'll take care of the fees. As for your mother, I'll make sure she has what she needs." Maya looked at him with wide eyes. "You've already done so much. I can't take more from you," he smiled. "You're not taking, Maya, you're earning it. You've worked hard, you've proven your worth. Let this be your reward for never giving up." Tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to hug him, but she only whispered, "Thank you. I won't waste this chance." So Maya went to college in the nearby city. It was a new world. Tall buildings, crowded buses, endless sounds. At first she felt out of place. But soon she found her rhythm. She studied social work, drawn to the idea of helping others who lived in hardship, just as she once had. Every weekend, she returned home to see her mother and to visit Arjun. They would sit together and talk about her studies, her projects, and the stories she was learning. He listened to her with quiet pride, knowing she was growing into someone who would make a difference. In college, Maya volunteered to teach children from poor neighborhoods. When she saw their eager faces, it reminded her of her younger self, sitting by the road selling flowers and dreaming of a better life. She often told them, "Never think you're too small to dream big. I was just like you once." Her mother's health continued to decline, but she lived long enough to see her daughter complete her college degree. The day Maya graduated, she sat by her mother's bed, showing her the certificate with trembling hands. Her mother smiled weakly and said, "You've made me proud, my child. Your father would have been proud too." Maya held her mother's hand, tears streaming down her face. "It's all because of you," she whispered. "You never stopped believing in me." That night, her mother passed away peacefully, holding her daughter's hand. The pain was deep, but Maya found comfort in knowing that her mother had left the world with pride in her heart. For a while, Maya felt lost. The person she loved most was gone, and the house that once felt warm now seemed empty. Arjun stood by her during that difficult time. He helped with the funeral, handled the paperwork, and never left her side. One evening, as they sat outside the house watching the sunset, Maya said quietly, "I don't know what to do next." Arjun looked at her gently. "Do what you were meant to do," he said. "You've studied social work for a reason. There are so many children out there who need what you once needed. Hope, guidance, a chance. Be that person for them." His words lit something inside her. That night she wrote in her notebook again, the same one he had given her years ago. She wrote, "Tomorrow I begin again. For her, for him, for every child who still believes that kindness can change the world. Months later, Maya began working with a small organization that helped educate poor children. She traveled to nearby villages, teaching under trees, in small huts, anywhere she could gather children. Her voice was steady, her heart full. The villagers began to call her Teacher Maya. She smiled every time she heard it. It wasn't about fame or money. It was about giving back the light that someone had once given her. One afternoon, as she finished teaching a group of children, Arjun came to see her. He stood quietly watching her from a distance. When she turned and saw him, she ran toward him with a bright smile. "You were right," she said. "Helping others feels better than anything." He nodded. "I knew it would. You found your purpose, Maya." She looked at him for a moment and said softly, "I wouldn't be here without you." He smiled. "You would have found your way with or without me. I just helped you see it sooner." That evening, as they walked back toward the village, Maya looked around at the fields, the children playing, and the soft golden light of the setting sun. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel poor or small. She felt strong, capable, and full of life. She realized that sometimes a rescue isn't just about saving someone in a moment of danger. Sometimes it's about believing in them long enough for them to believe in themselves. And that belief, she knew, was the most beautiful gift anyone could ever give. Years passed, and the small flower girl who once stood by the roadside had become a woman with a purpose. Maya was now known beyond her village for the work she did with children who had no access to education. What had started as a simple effort, teaching a few kids under a tree, had grown into something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise just like she used to in her childhood, but now, instead of picking flowers, she prepared lesson plans and organized supplies for her students. She still lived in the same small village, though her house had been repaired and painted with bright colors. It wasn't fancy, but it felt full of life and hope. Her dream of helping children had turned into a mission. With the help of a few kind donors and local volunteers, Maya managed to open a small learning center. The walls were covered with drawings made by the children, and every corner had something cheerful: colorful mats, storybooks, and even a tiny blackboard she had bought with her first paycheck. She named the center Little Steps. Her idea was simple: no matter how small the step, every child deserved a chance to move forward. The children loved her. They called her Didi, which meant elder sister. They came from nearby villages, some walking miles each day. Many of them had never been to school before. Maya taught them not only to read and write, but also to dream, just like she once did. She often told them, "Don't let your problems decide your future. You can change your story if you keep trying." Arjun still visited her often, though now he was more like a silent partner in her journey. He had retired from his business, spending his time helping causes he believed in. Seeing Maya succeed brought him peace. One afternoon, he visited the learning center. He stood at the doorway watching Maya sitting cross-legged among the children, explaining a story from a book. The children's eyes sparkled with excitement, their laughter filling the room. It reminded him of the first day he met her, that scared, wet little girl clutching a basket of crushed flowers in the rain. And now here she was, shining like the morning sun. When the class ended, Maya walked over and smiled. "You're early today," she said playfully. "I wanted to see how much my student has grown," he replied with a soft chuckle. Maya laughed. "And do you think I've done well?" Arjun nodded. "You've done more than well. You've changed lives, Maya." She looked around at the children playing outside. "I didn't do it alone," she said quietly. "You believed in me when no one else did. That belief gave me the strength to do all this." He smiled gently. "All I did was open a door. You were the one who walked through it." Maya's eyes softened. She knew he meant it, but in her heart, she also knew that without him, she might never have found that door at all. Later that evening, as they sat outside under the big tree near the center, Maya told him about her dream of expanding the school. "There are so many children in nearby villages who still can't study," she said. "I want to build a bigger place and a proper building with classrooms, books, and even computers. Something that will last even after I'm gone." Arjun listened silently, admiring her determination. "That's a big dream," he said finally. She nodded. "I know, but dreams are meant to be big. You once taught me that," he smiled. Then let's make it happen. Those simple words marked the beginning of something beautiful. Over the next few months, Maya worked harder than ever. She met with local officials, gathered support from nearby towns, and organized small fundraising events. The villagers helped too. Some donated bricks, others helped with labor. Even the children helped by painting walls and planting trees around the area. Arjun handled most of the paperwork and funding details quietly, always stepping back so Maya could shine. He didn't want credit. He wanted her to lead, because he believed that the story of her life was the real inspiration for everyone watching. The construction took almost a year. It wasn't always easy. There were days when they ran out of money, days when workers didn't show up, and nights when Maya cried out of frustration. But every time she felt like giving up, she remembered her mother's words. "We may be poor, but we are not hopeless." Finally, the day came when the new learning center stood completed. It was a simple building with 3 classrooms, a small library, and a playground filled with laughter. The walls were painted sky blue, with pictures of books, trees, and smiling children. On one side of the entrance, there was a quote painted in bright yellow: "One act of kindness can rewrite a life." Maya looked at it every morning and smiled. She knew exactly whose act of kindness had rewritten hers. The opening ceremony was small but full of emotion. The villagers gathered, children sang songs, and local reporters came to cover the story of the girl who once sold flowers and now ran a school. Arjun sat quietly in the front row, his eyes glistening with pride. When Maya stepped up to speak, she took a deep breath. Her voice trembled slightly at first, but soon it grew steady. "I was once a little girl who thought life had no way forward," she said, looking at the crowd. "But one day someone stopped to help me. Not because he had to, but because he cared. That moment changed everything. Today, this school stands as proof that kindness still exists in this world. And I hope every child who studies here will carry that kindness forward." The crowd clapped, and Arjun looked down, hiding the tears in his eyes. He had never wanted recognition, but hearing her words touched him deeply. After the ceremony, as people congratulated Maya, she quietly walked over to him. "This is your school too," she said softly. "Without you, none of this would have been possible." He shook his head gently. "It's yours, Maya. I just gave you a little push. You built the rest with your heart." They stood there for a while, watching the children play, their laughter echoing in the open yard. For both of them, it was a moment of peace, a circle completed, a promise kept. In the months that followed, the school grew quickly. More children enrolled, teachers joined, and organizations offered to support them. Maya was often invited to speak at events, sharing her story and encouraging others to believe in the power of small acts. Yet, no matter how much success came her way, she remained humble. She still visited the market sometimes, walking the same streets where she had once sold flowers. She would buy a bunch and place it near her mother's photograph at home. "Look, Ma," she would whisper. "I did it." Arjun continued to visit, though his health began to slow him down. He was older now, his hair grayer, his steps slower. But every time he came to see the school, his eyes lit up like they did years ago. He would sit on a bench under the same big tree and watch the children studying, their laughter ringing in the air. One day, Maya sat beside him as the sun was setting. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "why our paths crossed that day?" He smiled faintly. Maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it was life's way of showing me that kindness never goes to waste. She looked at him and said, "You didn't just help me. You changed everything. If you hadn't stopped that day, I don't know where I'd be." He turned to her with a gentle smile. "And if you hadn't believed in yourself, none of this would exist. So maybe we saved each other in our own ways." Maya didn't reply. She just smiled, feeling tears in her eyes. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. It felt like the world itself was saying thank you to both of them. That night, as Maya walked home, she passed by the small lane where she had once fallen in the rain all those years ago. The streetlight above flickered faintly, the same way it used to back then. She stopped for a moment, standing exactly where it had all begun. In her mind, she could still see her younger self. The little girl in the blue dress, clutching a basket of flowers, scared and cold. And she smiled, whispering softly to that memory, "We made it." Then she walked away, her heart full of peace, knowing that her journey was far from over. But the hardest part was long behind her. The poor girl who once needed rescue had now become someone who rescued others, and that, she knew, was the most beautiful twist life could have ever written for her. Years went by, and the learning center that started with a few children under a tree had now grown into a real school that stood tall in the middle of the village. The blue-painted walls shone under the sun, and the sound of children laughing filled the air every morning. What once was a dream was now a home for hundreds of young minds who came every day with hope in their eyes and curiosity in their hearts. Maya stood outside one morning, watching the children run through the gate. Some wore old uniforms, some didn't have shoes, but all of them carried the same smile she once had as a child. A smile that came from knowing that tomorrow could be better. She often thought about how far she had come and how life had taken her from a street corner to a classroom filled with joy. The people in the nearby villages now knew her name. They called her Teacher Maya, and they respected her not just for what she had achieved, but for how she had done it, with humility, honesty, and love. Parents trusted her, children adored her, and even strangers who heard her story were touched by her journey. But in all her success, she never forgot the person who had changed her life. Arjun still visited her school, though not as often as before. Age had slowed him down. His hair was white now and he walked with a cane. But every time he came to see the children, his eyes shone with the same kindness that had once stopped his car on a rainy night to save a scared little girl. One afternoon, Maya saw him sitting alone on the bench near the old tree where he always liked to sit. She walked over with 2 cups of tea and sat beside him. The children were playing in the yard, their laughter echoing around them. "They're growing so fast," he said, his voice gentle and full of pride. Maya smiled. "Yes, they are. Every time I look at them, I see a piece of my old self. Each of them reminds me why I started this." He nodded. "You've done something wonderful, Maya. You've built more than a school. You've built hope." She looked at him, her eyes warm. "You gave me that hope first," she said softly. "This is all because of you." He chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "No, it's because of the girl who refused to give up. I only saw what was already inside you." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the sound of the children's laughter. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the yard, making the scene look like a memory frozen in time. After a moment, Arjun said quietly, "You've done enough for this village. But have you thought about yourself, Maya? You've given your whole life to others. Don't you ever wish for something just for you?" Maya smiled faintly. "This is for me," she said. "Every time a child reads their first word, every time a mother thanks me for helping her son or daughter, I feel complete. This is my happiness." He looked at her proudly, but with a hint of sadness. He knew that her heart had become too big for herself alone. She lived through others now. A few months later, Maya began working on a new project. She wanted to open a scholarship fund so that the brightest children from her school could go to college. She named it the Promise Fund, inspired by the promise she once made to never stop learning and to always help others do the same. The idea spread quickly. People from nearby towns started donating. A few organizations reached out to her after reading about her story in the newspaper. Her name appeared in magazines and on websites. Journalists came to interview her, asking how she had turned her pain into purpose. She always gave the same answer. It began with one act of kindness. But even as her story reached far places, Maya stayed the same. She still walked to the market herself, still bought fresh flowers every week, and still lived in her small house in the village. She liked the simplicity of it. She believed that staying close to her roots was what kept her heart true. One evening, as she was working late at the school office, she got a call from Arjun's caretaker. His voice was calm but serious. "He's not been well," the man said softly. "He's asking for you." Maya felt her heart drop. Without waiting another moment, she closed her notebook, grabbed her shawl, and rushed to his house. It wasn't far, just a few miles from the village, but the walk felt longer that night. When she reached, she found Arjun lying on his bed, looking weak but peaceful. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "You came," he whispered. "Of course," she said, sitting beside him. "You don't think I'd ever forget you, do you?"